Before we get to this season premiere, we'd like to send our prayers to those affected by the ongoing Los Angeles wildfires. We're planning an event to benefit those affected, and we'll announce more details in the coming weeks. In the meantime, please check out the show notes for a variety of charities that you can contribute to help those in need.
You can't fool anybody if you don't know what you're doing. They're going to find out eventually. They're going to find out eventually. You don't know what you're doing. So I was like, let's figure out, because I say actors are born, but you get a technique, and suddenly the technique frees you to reach your full potential, because then you have a box of tools to then use when you're talking to directors and you're dealing with things in different venues, stage versus film, television, comedy, drama. You know how to dial, you know how to figure it out, because you got something in your toolbox. You just got to go find. You got to dig in your toolbox. There's more inconsistency when you don't have training, because then you're just relying on luck and a moment that they can catch on camera. I think actors in film, you can be a bad actor and be a movie star. You can be. You can be a bad actor and be a movie star.
For sure.
Because they can catch the great moments, and they can can them, and they can protect you, and they can give you more time to find get you where they need to get you.
Right.
On TV, if you get great actors in television, man, I always tell people like Gandolfini, man, I put him up against anybody, because he was nothing like that character, but also you got to go on a journey, like 6-7 seasons of a journey. There's no place to hide. You got to take this character, so it's no place to hide. You're gonna see all sides of you.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is a podcast on directing for anybody that's, quite simply, ever watched anything. Visit PeteChatmon.com to get your official podcast merch, hoodies, hats, jackets, mugs, and other swag, and learn more about your host.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by the good folks at Scriptation. Scriptation is the Emmy Award-winning app for production that allows you to mark up scripts, transfer notes, generate breakdowns, and so much more. No matter where you fall on the call sheet, Scriptation makes it easy to go paperless, collaborate with your crew, and save hours of time. Go to Scriptation.com/Pete to learn more and receive a special offer exclusive to Let's Shoot listeners. Now, on to the show. Oh yeah, here we go. It's the season 6 premiere of Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon. Allow me to welcome you to episode 72 of the show. Today's guest is none other than the incredibly versatile actor, Mr. Mike Colter. Now, you probably know Mike from the TV show Evil, where he played David Acosta, or perhaps you were introduced to him in Luke Cage, where he played the title character, or maybe it was Big Willie Little in $1 Million Baby opposite Hilary Swank and Morgan Freeman. I've known Mike for about 20 years, first seeing him off-Broadway in A Soldier's Play alongside Taye Diggs, Anthony Mackie, Dorian Missick, James McDaniel, and a handful of other amazing Black talent. In 2009 or 10, my memory fails me at the moment, Mike and his wife Eva were nice enough to let me shoot a proof of concept web series in their Jersey City apartment. And I suppose it was the last time they let anyone shoot anything in their home, because we may have overstayed our welcome. But this one is a classic Let's Shoot episode where I get to reconnect with an old friend and y'all get to share in the good times. But first, the catch-up. I've got to account for the last 5.5 months since our season 5 finale starring Lee Tolan Krieger. I've been hopping around what feels like the continent, directing shows wherever I can find them. I directed an episode of NCIS Origins in LA, the 4th episode of the final season of Raising Kanan in New York. And for those who love that show, just know season 4 is premiering in March, on March 7th, and season 5 is down the line, but I got to direct an episode in the final season. I went from New York to Montreal to direct 2 season 4 episodes of Ghosts. And I'm currently in Chicago doing a season 15 episode of Chicago Fire. The feature heist script I've been working on with Candace Sanchez-McFarlane has been moving forward. We've got a producer, we're going out to talent, and then, of course, to financiers and sales agents. We're really excited about the project, and I'm amped to get back into the feature director's chair. This season's upcoming slate of guests includes actors, a talent rep, directors Maggie Kiley and Rebecca Asher, showrunners Sasha Penn and Rafael Casal, and a few others that are penciled in but not yet finalized, so I will not say their names at the moment. We're going to keep doing what we do, but we really want to get you more of what you want. So we invite you to engage with our IG pages at Pete Chatmon and at Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon, as well as our YouTube channel, Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon, with questions, comments, and the like. Now, without further ado, let's get to it. This is episode 72 of Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon, starring Mike Colter.
Roll sound.
Speed.
The interview. Take one.
Yo, so the question I love to ask actors, especially those who have a bit of a run in the game, can you tell me about a cat named Watts that you portrayed in 2002? Do you remember the show?
Watts. Okay, hold up. I remember the name, and I remember it. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which Watts. I know that Watts. I can't think of the. It was a show, right? It was a TV show.
It was a TV show, 2002. It was a procedural.
Okay.
And
yeah. Okay. I think it's okay because it's the Law and Order, right?
Nah.
No. Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm gonna give you now. Law and Order, according to my IMDb records, was 3 years after that. In between was the Parkers, but according to IMDb, it's your first TV credit.
ER. Okay. Yeah. You know, that's funny. Okay. So I remember that, man. You know, you can't forget. I don't think you can forget your first gig. I don't think you can forget your first gig because I remember driving all the way to LA. Like I did a play in upstate New York, Shakespeare in the park kind of thing, or outside, you know, the Hudson River. And I remember thinking to myself, I got to get to LA fast as possible. Cause it's like, you know, you think to yourself, the quicker you get there, the quicker you can start working, the quicker you can start to make an impact. You're so anxious to sort of get in the game. Right. And I remember that week, funny because you said Watts, that week. So on IMDb credit, it says that was my first job. But actually, in actuality, I think I had shot the Parkers the prior week, but it just aired differently. So then officially, the Watts came out first, which was an ER episode. And I was playing ambulance driver, paramedic driver, or whatever in that episode. So I remember that because it all happened the same week. I essentially got two jobs in like a 7-day span, like a 10-day span, which is, you know, when it rains, it pours, right? Nothing. And then suddenly you have two jobs. It's never, okay, I could have one job this week, wait a couple weeks, and then have another job. It's all, no, you got two jobs, which was great. And that's kind of how, that's kind of apropos for the business, because it's feast or famine sometimes, you know?
Yeah, man.
And I remember that week, and actually I had 3 jobs. It's funny, because I said yes to some sort of, wow, what was it? It was a live theater experience at the Los Angeles Philharmonic thing. And I remember that week because I was so tired. I was trying to do all 3 jobs. I said yes to that. So I stayed up all night on shooting that ER episode because they shot a night shoot. They did a night shoot. I had no idea even that you do night shoots. I didn't know anything about that. So I worked in the Parkers and filmed. That's a sitcom. So that's a daytime thing. And then I think the next night I stayed up. So I had to get up and be on set like, I don't know, 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock and with nightfall. And then we shot until the morning. And then I got off of that and I went straight to downtown to work to do this film. It was crazy. I was so tired, but yeah, man, that was. You
were hungry though.
I was hungry,
man.
I was young and hungry.
Do you still have that hunger?
I do, but you got to be careful with that hunger because I think sometimes it's like I liken it to being a young person, right? You can be hungry and eat almost anything and nothing makes you sick. You know what I mean? You can eat almost anything and nothing makes you sick. Your appetite is just crazy, right? You give it to me. I try it. Worst case scenario, I keep moving. As you stay in the game long enough, the hunger is there, but you got to watch it because a wise person once said, it's not always the yeses. Sometimes the power of no keeps you as valuable as anything else. Sometimes it's what you don't do. And so sometimes having the access and having people offer you things. Yes, it's nourishment. It's sustenance, but is it what you need for your diet?
Yeah.
So you got to sort of adjust yourself.
That's a great analogy, because it's kind of like you kind of have to do your year of yes to then get to your decade of nah.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, nah, that ain't. I'm not trying to do that. Not trying to do that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so how does, and just from that one ER role that just led to Evil and Luke Cage, didn't it?
I wish, I wish. I think I tell people all the time, and it's, man, I feel like I have to restart. I feel like I have to restart my career every few years. I feel like something about the businesses where, especially if you're like me, where you sort of want to just, for me, I don't want to bore myself. So I'm never really looking for the same kind of opportunities over and over. And I don't know that I don't know that it's always been helpful or a productive way of keeping the momentum. But if I feel like I'm doing sort of the same thing, then I get bored, and then I start really sort of self-evaluating and start thinking to myself, it's almost, you feel like you're almost like hyper aware of yourself, and you lose the art because you want to be a little scared, you be a little nervous about jobs. You want to wonder, is this something I can do? You want to wonder, is this something, how will it turn out? And when you start just putting the things on autopilot and you go, all right, this is basically what I was doing before, and this is me to do more of that. So I'm a safety there, but it's also a boredom for me. So I feel like I do that to myself sometimes. I don't jump on the momentum of whatever it is that I'm doing, and then to my detriment, I have to then restart because I'm trying to find something that I want to do, right? And so then it's like, well, I'm always looking for what nobody's expecting me to want to do or what nobody sees me doing, and that's sort of my thing, and that keeps me.
And plus, with that mixture of TV and film that you do, it's like you do one role and it's something like Evil, right? You do another and it's something like Luke Cage. But even in those windows of time, you're going to end up. And I don't have a more elegant way of saying it, but like on each show, you end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. So like, it's like, okay, like I've done that. I know what I got to do to take it to act break. I know like that they need that look, I know that I can't really move too much because this is what's happening technically. Yeah. And then you want to be able to like, Men in Black yourself and then go do something that's different. And then that's going to fall into another routine. So I get it.
Yeah. Mix it up a little bit.
So what was the journey, man? Cause you're from South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what was the moment where it clicked and you said, I want to pursue the arts?
I mean, luckily, I think I got the bug. I guess luckily I got the bug early, like when I was 8 years old, but I was thinking, long term. So back then I wasn't thinking like a child actor. Like I work with a lot of child actors in the business, and, I don't know, your parents have to be on board. It's a whole thing to join this world, this circus as a child. And I never really wanted that. I was enjoying whatever freedom I had as a child and going through college and everything like that. And I thought to myself, I want to go study somewhere and I want to approach it as an adult, because I thought all the things that excited me, all the roles that really excited me were adult roles. So it was always like, I'm looking at, like everybody else, I'm looking at The Godfather. I'm looking at Serpico. I'm looking at Dogs of the Afternoon. I'm looking at all these classics. I'm looking at things that excite me, World According to Garp. A bunch of movies that I'm thinking to myself, but it's all, I love that movie, man. It's like you're just thinking about yourself in the trajectory of adulthood, because it brings meatier substance, better writing. And so that's how I thought of myself. And so even when I got out of grad school, I was like 24, 25. I thought I was still young for the stuff that I wanted to do. So I felt like, I have time on my side in some regard. I was like, I'm probably going to, as I get closer to 50, that's that's really where I want to be in terms of like the roles I want to play. So I think that's really helped me in some regard. I think it really has, because me saying, and when I was in South Carolina at 8 years old, like, I want to be an actor. The funny thing is nobody really said no. Nobody, a lot of people go, hating on them like, you never be nothing. I didn't have that. I had a lot of people going, yeah, you could do that. I could see you doing that. And that was encouraging. And
what was it you think that they saw?
Well, I was a class clown for one, right? So people thought, okay, this guy, if anything, he's going to be like the Eddie Murphy kind of guy. He's going to be that dude. He's going to be like a comedic actor. But then I switched it because I was like, I always thought the more challenging stuff for me was the drama and the things like that. And now that I've gotten into a bit, now I'm actually thinking to myself, I would love to do some comedy, but I'm always looking at things that feel uncomfortable to me,
Right.
like the roles that are easier for me to access because of my background and the things that I've grown up doing. Those don't excite me as much as things that are like a really departure from me. Because when people see me, I don't think they know that most of the stuff I'm playing is a departure from me, because I'm nothing really like the characters that I play. That's what I think, that's what I think is always the thing. It's like, oh, he must be something like that. And I really am not like, in most of anything I've ever played, I'm not really like that. So, that's why I'm always looking for those kind of things.
Is there any character that kind of stands out to you that is maybe like the closest to you see yourself?
I mean, I would have to take pieces from every character, because there's always one piece of the character that I can grab a hold of and then understand that character, that part of him.
Right.
And then I can layer the rest of it. So I'd have to take pieces, because every character is it's usually only one thing, because for the most part, I'm always like, like for Luke Cage, I understood his desire to help the community.
Right.
I understood that. I understood his desire to make the community a better place to live, a safer place for people to grow up in. And just that attachment to the community, I understood that. I don't think that I always, as in life, execute. I don't think I would, I'm not saying I am a community activist. I'm that, but I understand that in my core, what drove him to do what he wanted to do and how he got, his inspiration. And then like David Costa, I thought to myself, like, I grew up in a family of people who went to church. They weren't Catholics, but my family's religious. I'm not, but I understand people who then switch, because I got a friend who was an actor, and he changed his life and became a minister and opened a church. And his name was David.
Wow.
So I watched his transformation from the time where we were hanging out at bars. He was a bartender. I watched his trajectory from the time, having a kid. I saw his life and how he turned and why he did what he did. It's like you go from this thing, you want to commit yourself and have this huge transformation, and nobody understands it. And I couldn't understand it for my character. I'm like, man, I couldn't understand why anybody would go live in a church, and become a priest, celibate, all this stuff, man, to dedicate yourself to God, but stay inside of church.
Big choices right there. Some big choices right there.
Big choices, man. Big choices. Big choices. And so I wrap my mind around things I could understand, every role is like, what can I grab a hold of right away that I can understand from the character, so that I get it. So that I get it. Like even the famous, sometimes people see me, they'll be like, they're like, man, Girls Trip, da-da-da. They cut out a big scene in Girls Trip that I always resented, because it helped understand my character. Between Regina and I, we had a discussion about the arrangement that we had.
Right.
Because it was an arrangement between a husband and wife that was kind of like the marriage was what it was, but we're going to ride this out. We're going to make this business work. See, that part was kind of lost in it. Made it look
and so then it looks a little crazy now.
It looks a little crazy. It looks like, oh, I'm just blindsided. Her and her friends come and they're like, well, what's going on? When she kind of co-signed on it. But then that would have demanded that her character has some accountability for a situation. So they pulled that conveniently out. And I always thought that made it a much more complex movie, in the sense that you have to now talk to your friends about the kind of life you're living and the choices you've made. That's the part they didn't want to have. And so it just made it like, no, this is just that. So when I think about like, these things it's always something. How do you find some ways to think? So it's just.
That's the burden oftentimes too, man. Like just just like trying to thread the needle and have the audience get what they need. But like, can you sprinkle a little more nuance in there, that maybe goes over 10% of their head, but like for the other 90%, they're going to be like, yeah, that's real life, because everything is so often, what's the easiest way to consume it, the low hanging fruit.
Make them think a little bit.
Yeah. So what made you choose the academic route, right? Because you went to Rutgers for grad, and like, what made you choose that versus just like, waiting tables and.
Well, no, you show up versus showing up like a lot of people just show up in LA, right? Just show up,
right?
Live in your car, go to parties, network, whatever it is. I actually did a little bit of both. So I did a combination. The whole route of Rutgers, Mason Gross was just for me to get a training, so I would know what the hell I was doing. Like, right? I needed I know so many people. I was like, you can't fool anybody if you don't know what you're doing. They're gonna find out eventually. You're gonna find out eventually. You don't know what you're doing. So I was like, let's figure out, because I say actors are born, but you get a technique and suddenly the technique frees you to reach your full potential, because then you have a box of tools to then use when you're talking to directors and you're dealing with things in different venues, stage versus film, television, comedy, draw. You know how to like dial, you know how to figure it out, because you got something in your toolbox you just got to go find. You got to dig in your toolbox. And some actors don't. Some people don't have a toolbox, so it gets caught.
They like, what's a screwdriver?
Yeah, what's a screwdriver?
Yeah, wrench.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't know what you're asking them, and so you're trying to find a way to communicate that to them. So I wanted to get that first, so no matter what, I would be like, I know what I'm doing if I get the opportunity. So I wanted to get that firm, because honestly, up until taking a technique, there's more inconsistency when you don't have training, because then you're just relying on luck and a moment that they can catch on camera. The directors in films, and I'll say something very bold, and I don't think it's that bold because I think it's true. I think actors in film, you can be a bad actor and be a movie star. You can be. You can be a bad actor and be a movie star.
For sure.
Because they can catch the great moments and they can can them and they can protect you and they can give you more time to find wherever, get you where they need to get you.
Right.
And it's all.
Or we can also create some totally inaccurate fucking moment.
Yeah.
From the other actor, knowing that it's going to get the thing that the scene needs that you never would have produced.
Yes, you can do all kinds of things to get whatever you need to get to create this moment. And I can think of a handful of actors and performances, and they'll never be that good again. And it's a combination of the director, the writing, and all that stuff, and the role. But you can be protected. You can be protected. When TV, you know, if you get great actors in television, man, I always tell people like Gandolfini, man, I put him up against anybody, because he was nothing like that character. But also, you got to go on a journey, like 6-7 seasons of a journey. There's no place to hide. You got to take this character. So it's no place to hide. You're gonna see all sides of you in this journey. TV, you be on TV, you be on the screen out of a movie, you might be on screen 30 minutes, 25 minutes. You know, Hannibal Lecter, great performance. Silence of the Lambs on screen for like 13 minutes. You know, so you can find ways. So I wanted to make sure I was trained, so I could just make sure I could handle all the venues and all the different platforms, and so all the mediums. And so then, after I did that, then I also did it for the showcase, because people don't know, when you go to a graduate school or program conservatory, you really are signing up for a showcase if you can get yourself to the point where you graduate and agents will come and see you, and there's a direct pipeline from your school to an agent, hopefully, at least getting in front of one, because then you want to get an agent and then you got a chance. You know, everybody gets to, I got to get an agent. You can be talented, but you got to find somebody to sign you, to take you to.
That's kind of like film school was for me, where it was like, I just, in 1995, you know, I'm going to date myself. There was no way I could get my hands on a camera without going into, like, you know, Pell Grants and work study and lines of credit to pay for school. You just couldn't do it otherwise.
No.
I was going to ask, have you heard the Michael Caine technique? I just saw an Instagram video about it where like if the cameras.
I read his book. You know, I read that book. Yeah. I read that book, and that book came in the 90s. I read that book when it came out. I pretty much read everybody's book. I read his a couple times. Acting on camera or something like that, I'm thinking of. Yeah. Maybe.
It's great. But what eye to look at? Like look at one eye from the actor based off where the camera is.
3 weeks ago, a month ago, I was just repeating that to an actress. She's you know, not that new, but it was like we were doing a scene, and it's like, you know, and she has very large eyes, but it was like, I forgot what it was. You know, the camera can be in weird spots sometimes, and sometimes an actor can actually get there, sometimes you can't. You gotta give them a little dot, and maybe give them something to look at. So I remember we were talking about that, but these little things that help you to just help the performance, because you're dealing with the technical thing, and it's not necessarily has anything to do with your acting. It's like what you think you're giving the audience versus what they're seeing. You know, it's just
that's so great. I had a showrunner say to me recently, he said, like, you can't, and we were talking about some actors who kind of wanted things to be real. And the comment he said, which was, I thought it was brilliant, was like, you can't have believability at the expense of drama. I was like, that's a bar, dog.
That's a bar.
Because like, it would be like sometimes like
That's true.
not wanting to lean into like,
Mhm.
you got to lock eyes with this person. I know you might
Yeah.
never do it.
Yeah.
But like you holding it for a half a second and like,
Mhm.
I'd be like, yo, can you count to 3 before you look away?
Please,
Please, like something.
The performative of it. And I think that's a great note that, and I'm probably going to steal that at some point, but I can remember that. That's a great note because I have this with other colleagues. You know, I think
Mhm.
I'm a technical person. My mind is logical because of this where I am. I will always take into account a technical note and find a way to
Mhm.
justify it because I know it's for the sake of the performance, the sake of the audience. Because yes, like he said, you may in real life not do that, but if you don't do it here,
Right.
we're losing
Right.
a moment. And it's like another one. It's like stunts. Stunt fighters are also mixed martial artists. Some of them have
Yeah.
a technique and they've been studying their entire life. They come to set and all of a sudden they're asked to fight for cameras. They got to do all
Right.
the stuff that's not even technically that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Throwing a punch, we know boxing,
Yeah.
you keep tight. No, here
Right.
you gotta loop it so we can see it coming, and so can
Right.
the audience, and so can the person. But that's how you fight because you need to.
Right.
Otherwise, we don't see any of that. So
Yeah, man.
adjust
It's
it
real.
for us.
It's real.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense. It sounds like you were very deliberate and thoughtful about the road ahead. At what moment would you say you started to get a sense of like things were clicking for you?
You know what? I think for me, clicking happens. There's always like I think there's steps, right? So first thing is you get the agent right, then you struggle a bit. Every level change, you have to sort of take it, and then you obviously want to have another level change, but you have to at least acknowledge the progress that has been made. So when you get, I knew immediately. I was walking around in LA, and people, man, you meet so many actors that didn't even have representation. They just didn't have representation. So you go, okay, I'm not doing that, right? I'm doing okay. I'm not doing background, which a lot of actors come in doing background. They come in a lot of ways. I know actors have done that. Stand-in work. I know actors you do stand work for years. They're trying to find all kinds.
Was that a philosophical thing for you, or just
I wanted to. I mean, look, I went and spent money. Got in debt. Right. I got training at an MFA. I figured, look, I can at least. And it's not just me. I think people respect the training. They respect that you took the opportunity to dedicate a certain amount of time of your life to training for your craft and harnessing your skills, honing those techniques. So they assume a certain amount of things. So I think that does always give you a leg up, right? And it's just as it gives you a leg up which university you went to, which can be fair and unfair. But then you get a little leg up. You're going to get a little more of a different look. So opportunities come, I wouldn't say easier because you already paid your dues. People don't understand. It's like if somebody comes out of a program, they've already decided to pay dues financially and time-wise. So it's just focusing and harnessing all of your energy into this dream of yours to get this thing that's going to take you 3 or 4 years to just focus on. It might be 4, it might be 7 years. You studying next program. I talked to this dude one day, man. He kind of insulted me. He's a dentist. We all still got kids at primary school. We were hanging out at a parents' mixer at somebody's house. And we were talking, and one of the parents was like, "Oh, I like your work." We were talking about something I was doing. Everybody in LA is famous or somebody, right? So we were just talking, but she was like, "Oh yeah, we were talking about that." And anyway, it was cool. And then he said, "Oh, he said something about it because he didn't know me." And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm an actor or whatever." He said, "Oh yes," and I said, and I asked him what he does, and he said he's a dentist or whatever. And I said something. I said, "Look, dentists, because dentists make money. We all know that. Chris Rock special, right? Dentists,
right?
Oh, dentists make money. I've never heard of a broke dentist. Never heard of it." So I said something to that effect. I said, I'm glad you're dentist because blah blah blah, whatever. And then I said, because actors, they struggle sometimes. And he was like, "Well, I forgot." He said something about educate. Well, I have a doctor, so some of the education. So he's basically attributing the success of the dentist to the fact that they went to school, and so that they should be successful. Right. And I said, "Well, I actually have studied as much as you have as well. I got a master's, and I did 3 years at which he didn't think about that. He's a British dude." I said, "Yeah, I went to a conservatory. Yeah, I didn't just jump off, And so I put him in his place because, at the same time, we're artists, and I don't have an ego, but sometimes you gotta bring your ego out and let them know I did the work. So I'm just saying,
pop out.
I gotta pop out. You did some work. I put some work into. So I deserve what I got. So, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't go any farther, but that's how people are. People, you put the work in and you just say to yourself, let me get to a point. So that's what I want to do. I want to give myself a leg up. So when I got into LA and I got an agent, at least when they looked at me, they knew that there potentially was more there because I had done some work prior to stepping in the room. So I did that. That's a layer, right? Then you start auditioning. You want to get your SAG card, right? You want to get in the union. You get your first gig. Then you're thinking about, well, co-star versus guest star. What am I guest starring? What am I doing, right? Then you're thinking, oh, can I get a recurring role? Can I get a movie? Can I get a series regular? We know those layers of like financial
and what about like there's film, there's TV, there's theater? Because I think we probably maybe first met when you were doing Soldier's Play over at second stage. So like, was that just let me fuel my artistic passion, or is that like, who knows where the eyeballs are going to be?
That's exactly what it was. To your point, I had done $1 Million Baby. And then it was one of those things where I had a small agency. They wanted me to go do more athletic roles. It was like another box. I remember they were like, hey, matter of fact, it was like Stallone was doing Rocky and Tarver was going to play ended up playing the villain or whatever it was. I can't remember that well. It was one of those things where it's like, why don't we can get you to do that? And I go, well, I just bid a boxer. I don't really, I don't know what this pattern, I don't know what your strategy is, but for me as an actor, I'm just like, that didn't make sense to me. There were a lot of things I was just like, that didn't make sense to me. So we kept butting heads on what the next move was. And they didn't understand me. And I probably didn't understand myself. I was trying to figure out the right things versus what I wanted to do, what was available to me. And I didn't have a manager at the time. So what I ended up doing, and I was working in a restaurant. Like I was doing my day grind and getting work, but I was still working in a restaurant because I wasn't sure where my next check was coming from. And I remember Soldier's Play was out. This shows you how weak probably my agency was at the time. I mean, Soldier's Play was auditioning. They cast everybody in the play except CJ, which is a blues singer. And I forgot how I heard about it. I don't know. I was probably another fellow actor who said something about it. And I said, what? Soldier's Play? That's my shit, man. I'm like, that is something I grew up watching, and I just understood that world. And I did the military a little bit. I pretended to be a soldier. I pretended I was an ROTC, Army Reserves. I played the role. I was very good at that kind of stuff. So I was like, let me see what this is. But I also knew that I had a real way into CJ because I grew up in the South. I understood the duality of what those layers of colorism and blackness were in that play. I understood all the characters, but particularly CJ, because I had the size and I had the, so I was like, I want to at least go in for it. So I called my agency.
I'm perfect for this.
I'm perfect for this. And I'm saying this to myself, but I'm like, okay, Tay's already cast, Dorian's already cast, Anthony's already cast, everybody's cast. And I went in and I called my agent and he got me in for it, right? And I go in the office in the audition room, and every brother in there has a guitar. They're tuning the guitar, they're strumming the guitar, they're warming up. I don't have a guitar because I don't play guitar, but the character requires that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going in there a cappella. So sing these couple songs a cappella, but then I'll do the scenes, and then at the end I sang a cappella, whatever, right? And man, I remember Joe Bonnie, never forget, she was like, okay, I really liked your audition. Start talking, and she said, you don't play guitar? You don't have a guitar? I said, I don't play. I said, but I can learn. And she said, you can learn to play guitar? I said, be open. She said, it's about like roughly less than 2 months. We'll be in previews. She said, do you have the dexterity to hands? Are you going to be able to get that down before? Like, I don't know all the conversation in detail, but that's just of it is she was sizing me up, looking me through the windows of my soul to check whether I believe that I could get this done. And at that moment, I had no doubt in my mind that I could accomplish this. And that's that talk about hungry, man. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, when you're young, your mind is just different. Like the risk versus reward, you just like.
But you still, I bet you still pull from that. You know what I mean? Because I've done things where I've done like crazy wire work and green screen. I'd be like, I don't know what going on.
You know what I'm doing.
So, and I find the right person. I'd be like, yo, can you explain this to me? And then I'll take all that. I'll do a study.
Way through it. Yeah.
And then I'll come back and be like, so here are the shots.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to do that.
You got to save the
do
confidence and fake it till you make it. But luckily, look, I had almost 2 months. I had 6 weeks, essentially like 6-7 weeks for the time that, we got.
And this was 07 or 08?
This was 05. This was 05.
This was 05. Oh, wow.
05.
Okay.
Actually, we started rehearsal. I remember because Katrina was a lot of guys from New Orleans. So Katrina was 2005. So this is 2005. Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember she called them calling me and saying, okay, you're a guy. And I went straight to Craigslist back in the day, right? Craigslist. Got 2 guitars. Went on YouTube. Went to the music store. Got a pick. Got all stuff. I didn't know what I was doing, dude. I was just in there picking with it, trying to figure out the chords, how to tune it. Got a tuner. I was doing all this stuff. Then
let me ask you. When you first strummed that motherfucker, were you like, oh shit? Oh, what have I gotten into?
Listen, from the time they gave it to me, it was an oh shit moment. From the time they said you got the role, it was an oh shit moment for 5 weeks. I kid you not. I was wondering had I made a mistake because essentially what I did was I leveraged my integrity, my work ethic, my entire career, whatever it was at that moment, where I could go somewhere, I could not. But this was a moment where make it or break it, because this was going to be seen by a lot of people, and there was nowhere to hide. And if this character didn't work, if I didn't work, it was going to be a failure. So there's a lot of pressure on me. I was still working in restaurants and just doing that for a bit. And then I was at some point, I just, I took some time off because I couldn't do it. I took too much or whatever it was, right? But I remember getting a guitar, and Steve Barganetti, love that dude. Steve Barganetti was a great classically trained guitarist who went to Juilliard. He also did the music. He was the music director for The Color Purple on Broadway for a while after Soda's play. Great guy. He worked with me every day. So I rehearsed with him every day. I did our rehearsals every day. Then I would go home and rehearse even more every day. And when I first strummed the guitar without having any training, the first table read, everybody was scared. Everybody looked around because I couldn't play. And it comes up, and I'm just gonna do. I don't know what I was doing. I just did a little something, but everybody was looking around like, oh shit. Everybody, Tay, Anthony, Dorian, James McDaniel, everybody was looking like that. And Joe Bonnie, to her credit, obviously, had taken a chance on me. And Carol Rothman, or whatever her name is, I think the artistic director she was at the time, everybody was sweating, including myself. Right. And we did that. That was the journey. We all just sweat for 5 weeks until it all came together and I was able to start playing at the same time. That's what happened. Right.
Oh, man.
And Benjamin Brantley, Bent Brantley was the biggest reviewer critic in the New York Times, and he gave us a great review. He called me out and said I was the find of the production, which I still remember that. Mike Colter was the find of the production. And that was it. Like, it was like, okay, and then the casting directors, they kept coming to see. So the casting directors, that's why I did it. I knew that if I did this play with all these other brothers in there who were already established, who were already working actors, I could find a way to now get myself in there. People would see me.
You were what I like to call innocent by association.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you get that rubs off on you just being in that same presence in that same group.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta think about the big picture sometimes, because there was no money, as we know, there was no money in play. So
at that time, man, I had my calendar all wrong timeline. So that was 05. That was like a year or so after $1 Million Baby.
Same year came out, I think it was,
Hey there, this is Lee Tolan Krieger, the pilot director from shows like You, Riverdale, and Shadow and Bone, and you're watching Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon.
Transitions, A Director's Journey and Motivational Handbook is Pete Chatmon's book from Michael Weezy Productions. The reviews are in. Greg Berlanti says, "There's a reason why everyone who works with Pete falls in love with his work. The lessons he imparts here are invaluable. Do yourself a favor and read it cover to cover." From Sarah Gamble, "Pete's sharing gold nuggets that will spare you a ton of wasted time and help you channel your drive, talent, and ambition in the most productive way." And from Jesse Williams, "This business has everything to do with preparation and expectations. Transitions grounds lessons in reality while empowering our artistry to run free. Not an easy balance to execute." Transitions, A Director's Journey and Motivational Handbook is available on Amazon and anywhere else you get your books. Don't forget about your mom and pop shops, people.
Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by the good folks at Scriptation. Scriptation is the Emmy Award-winning app for production that allows you to mark up scripts, transfer notes, generate breakdowns, and so much more. Personally, I use Scriptation daily on every production that I am involved with. While directing episode 106 of NCIS Origins, I took advantage of Scriptation's photo feature to organize my blocking for the episode's main set piece. We turned a restaurant with one entry point into a multi-level club with private rooms and back alleys, and sharing the photos in my script helped my department heads bring it to life. This is just one of the ways I use the incredible features inside of Scriptation. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to get an exclusive 20% off Scriptation's premium toolkit, Scriptation Industry Pro. So what was like the first role where you were like, okay, like, you know, looks like I'm going to work?
It was Bishop, Lamont Bishop in Good Wife.
Okay.
Because I watched The Good Wife, and it was one of those things. It was like, again, I was like going in, I'm like, okay, Mark Sachs was auditioning people for it. I remember the show had just started, so it was like a half a season into it. And I'm watching it going, oh, this is a pretty sophisticated, good show, right? This is network television. Just before, I think Homeland was out that year, so we started to do that change of the guard of streamers.
Yeah.
It's starting to be a streaming world. It's like everybody's, high-end streaming, bigger budgets, and there's no real
time constraints.
Well, time constraints, but also guardrails up for like sexuality and content. There wasn't that thing because it wasn't tied to subscriptions or also tied to sales of commercials. Because you get commercials that tells you those kind of things. It keeps you in a this is it. This is how this is what
can't
we do.
offend nobody who likes Tide.
Yes, can't offend nobody in the middle of America.
Coca-Cola don't like that kind of sex.
This company, Atlanta is where this company's based. It's in Texas, So all of that was Good Wife was the best. It was the best network television I've seen in a long time. And I just was like, this is pretty cool. And I was like, I kept auditioning for it, but everybody that they had on that show was like a real, like they had names, man. Even the guest stars. There was nobody who wasn't like I never heard of. There was anybody who that show was like, oh yeah, I know them. Oh yeah, I know them. Even if it was just Broadway or they were like a theater actor, there was no real people who were just like unknowns, nobody. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, good. It was great because that's why New York was like a source of such great talented actors. But I was also thinking to myself, like, Jesus Christ, literally every guest star, every recurring role, all of them, nobody was not an established actor. So I kept going in for it. And then eventually,
how many times would you say you went in
for Good Wife? I probably went in. Well, so I know at least four times I did not get what I went in for. And then I think that was the fifth time. And I was really close because, they put a pin in you for the time, for the role before that I didn't get, I had a pin in me. And I remember, who was the guy? He won't remember but I remember stuff because if I don't get the role, I remember who it was. It was actually, was it Corey Stoll? White guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Two different types.
Who went on to do House of Cards, right?
House of Cards and
yeah.
One of my favorite movies, Midnight in Paris, where he played, I think it was Hemingway, great actor. So I'd see him in the room, and that's how I am. I see people, and I look at them. It's not about ethnicity. It's about the type of actor. Like I'm looking like what's my competition? Who's my role? What's the role for this thing? So anyway, he got that role, and it ended up being like a one-off. It was like maybe 2 scenes or whatever. But of course, I was so close. I had a pin in me. I was like, I want to get this job under the belt.
Yeah, establish
myself. I also want to get that credit. I want to be on that show. Didn't happen, and then turns out, I'm not thinking this way, but the next job becomes along as Lamont Bishop, and I got that role, and it was supposed to be a one-off, but it was a really nice introduction to the character. So it was like maybe 5 scenes, established his world. It was really cool. People responded to him. My family called me. It's like, oh, I like this character. We think they'll bring him back. And I go, I haven't thought about that. And then sure enough, a couple of episodes later, like they want to bring him back. And then it started to, I started to come back and become a recurring. And then eventually, I remember Josh's character was killed off. And eventually I think I went away. I think I was doing, I don't know what I was doing. I forgot. I had a show. I had a show got picked up and went to LA. And I kept my relationship with the Kings. I always wanted to be back. Eventually, that show got canceled. I came back and I picked it up where I left off. But when I got Lamont Bishop, it was one of those things where I felt like, okay, I knew that I was like, okay, I know I have something now where I can go, I know there's a possibility for me to continue to work consistently because now I'm starting to find a stride and people are starting to notice the work. That's really what it was. Okay, starting to notice the work. And you're working with really talented people who are just like, Emmy winners, Oscar winners, just really good people that I respect. F. Murray Abrams is on the show. They've had everyone on that show, on those shows, who's anyone who lives in New York. Just great talented people. So I was like, I'm surrounded by a bunch of people here who are very talented, and I have a really good role that is prominent and is one of the favorite roles on the show. And I feel at home here. So I felt like it gave me a sense of like I can hang with anybody. You always feel like of course I'm working across the Clint Eastwood or Morgan Freeman or Hilary Swank or whatever, right? But every time you look around, you're like, okay, I want to know. You check yourself by who you're around sometimes, and I respect a lot of those actors.
Is there, with that caliber of actor, like, what is there any kind of moment or scene that stands out where you were like, man, this cat is really good, and I'm cooking too. Like, we're doing some great work right now.
Yeah, that's it's funny. It's always like a chemistry thing, right? So a lot of times the writing is always set up for. Sometimes it's set up for a guest actor to shine because the scene, the episode is carried by them. Maybe it's emotionally, maybe or whatever, right? And sometimes it's just you're just put with the right person, and then you're able to play off with them, and it creates just chemistry. So I remember 2 times, like we were a Good Wife or whatever, or it happens many times. You just never know how you're gonna size up with somebody. I was on the show with Wally Shawn then. Wally Shawn then ended up working on Evil. Wally Shawn and I couldn't be more diametrically opposed. We're completely different looks. Wally Shawn, little white guy, Wally's been in business forever. He has a certain vibe, a certain rhythm. And it was a great pairing because then he was playing like my heavy guy. He's the guy that I would call in if I wanted something to get something taken care of. But he was the most unassuming guy you could ever find. And at some moment, I think sometimes they bring in, it's the writing. They bring a storyline that was very interesting to my character, where my son was being taken away from me because the feds were coming to get me. So it allowed you to get into the character, my home life of that character. Then look at like I just did that movie, Playing with Jerry. People. I thought we did have good chemistry, and I think what happens is you never know who you're going to have chemistry with, but I think it starts with what's going on off screen. I think you have to have a rapport or mutual respect with the person you're working with off screen. Some people say, you can read content and people can not like each other and it'll still be interesting. I don't buy that. I think that you'll read there's something, but I know behind the scenes, and I watch people work, and I can tell there is something not quite right. And there are choices they make because they just don't like the person.
To your exact point, like, I leave people innocent, but like, but like I've done a few shows where people who are in a relationship don't really mess with each other.
No.
And so it ends up being like, you can't put no scenes in the bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. They're not going to sit next to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what I mean? So like, it becomes like in the same way you would read it, to your point, if you walked into somebody's house and then like you spent the evening or dinner and you'd be like, they good?
Yeah.
It's the same deal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's look, you can't avoid it. People are people. I know there are people I don't get along with in life, but I try not to work with them. I try to avoid people I just don't want to work with. And I know it's not going to always be that way. I've been lucky to a point, and sometimes I hear things and I know things and I listen, because it doesn't mean that person is going to be that way with you. Because I've heard I've heard things about people who I've worked with since, and I've spent time with, and I think they're great people and I get along with them, and they're some of my favorite people. But sometimes they're going through things in their life, and that was that phase. So I put that in the back of my mind and go, okay, I think about it, okay, no excuse, because an a-hole is an a-hole. But then you have to think to yourself, is that going to be worth taking that job? And how are they going to treat you? It's a lot. It's a lot. But I tell you, at the end of the day, as an actor, I think most actors, I'm the kind of person, if it sucks, I just walk. I just got to walk. I got to go. I have no problem with, like, I'm just like, I'm not going to, life's too short. I'm not going to spend 2 months on a set in close proximity with somebody to work with them and have it be just awful. I won't. Yeah. If they're in the movie, the other scenes, fine. But I can't do this every day.
Maybe one scene.
One scene, yeah, one scene. But it can't be every day. We can't be in the scenes and we are not getting along. It just doesn't make any sense. Because at the end of the day, man, we're doing something that's just, it's not that serious. We're having a great time. We're creating art. And there's no way we can be building our day around somebody who's stuck in a trailer who doesn't want to come out of the trailer, or somebody who just doesn't want to work, or somebody who just doesn't want to, I've heard these stories. I won't mention, but it's a big movie star everybody's gossiping about right now. And I'd heard those stories prior to that happening, to getting out into the trades. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You just gotta walk. If you come to set and the person doesn't show up all day and you waiting on them to show up and you thought you were shooting something, and then they come up 3 hours later, 4 hours later and say, hey, actually, I'm not working today. You got one time to do that, and I got to find my way out. We can't do this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of that, like I'd love to give the floor to you, man, to just kind of, and this is the for directors portion of the conversation. Like, what are things that you, and this is loose by design, because I feel you probably the type of cat who may have something that comes to mind, but like, what are some of the things that you see that pop up that, I could maybe choose better words, but indicate a director's inexperience.
You know what? There's inexperience, and then there's a way of working that's not necessarily conducive to creating the best results for your actors, right? Because I think they could be really. I know you probably know. It's like they're directors that come from different backgrounds, right? Some of them come in from editing, which is very useful. Some of them come in from a cinematography standpoint. Some of them were actors themselves.
Most TV are going to have come from cinematography. Probably.
Yeah, the DP and stuff like that. So they basically know the coverage. They know the lenses. They know the setups. They have an idea about what they want to see, how they want to present it visually. But then, the ones I know and the ones I like the most usually are actors, a little bit of actors, or at least have taken acting classes. Because we talk like Mel. Mel, you bump into and you work with her before. Script Supervisor, but she's also director. She sat, and I think she took some Eisner. She took some classes. A lot of directors do take some classes. So then you understand the short, and you understand what it's gonna take to get to that place you want the actor to be, or to talk to them in shorthand so they understand what you're asking for. And the directors that I love to work with the most are the ones that allow the actors to basically almost create the blocking. Obviously, there's limitations in which some things you can't shoot that because that background's not interesting. Can we turn it over here? Can we end up blah blah blah? So if we let them do a rehearsal first, see where they go, and then see if that meshes with you, and if it's anything that just is a deal breaker, or can you try to compromise? Then you go from there, because then you have less to do. Because then actors are prepared. They usually have an idea in their head, right? So you see what they want, see what they're thinking about, and then I'm an actor. Listen, he might give me something that's like gold, or he might have an idea. And I'm like, I'll take the best idea. My idea might have sucked. That might not be better. I like your idea better. You got to go with that. No ego. Got to go with the better idea. So inexperience, I think, where directors come in, and this happens a lot because I know they're inexperienced. They want to tell you everything
you about to do. Everything you about to do.
Everything you about to do. They tell you like it's like, I guess, I don't know. I think I'm used to work with some people who kind of just phone it in to do a lot of procedurals. Maybe the actors are just like asleep. They come in, maybe didn't look at the lines until they got in the van or something, or I don't know what's going on. But they come in and they're like, all right, you're going to come to the door, or I want you to sit, you're going to sit at his desk and you're going to open the computer. You're going to blah, 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 blah. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. And it's sort of like this. It's almost like they're reading, and they'll read the scene, they'll read the stage direction, all this stuff. And they don't give you any room for like creativity. Because it's like, got ideas. Actors who have ideas want to show you those ideas, but if you tell them things before, it suppresses the creative juices, because they're like, you're not giving them any benefit of the doubt here. You're kind of going, I think you're probably just going to come in and do this, but let me tell you what I really want you to do, because I want to end up over here. Let's try to find a way to, I'm all about, after I've done it and you say, you know what, that's great, but what I was hoping, we could do this, because then I go, oh, that's going to be a nice, I can see why you want to do that. Now I can see if I can motivate that. Unless it's completely wrong, and I'm going, I can't, because if I did that, I'm constantly learning, because like, I try and do that. I try and be like,
actually what I've tried to do is I feel like this scene is about this.
Yeah.
and I want to communicate this emotion for this turning point, and let's get it on its feet. You know what I mean? Because maybe that little thing might trigger something. But I was doing a scene for Yellow Jackets, and I was just like, it was simple as fuck, man. Like it was just like, you know, she's opening a box, blah, blah, blah. It's Lauren Ambrose opening a box, boom, boom. And I was like, think, boom, boom, boom. And she was like, well, what if I do this? And it was like 3/8 of a page. And I was like, you know what the fuck would you do? Because you're about to show me some dope stuff that like is taking a level of thought into this that is deeper than what I've been applying to it. Yeah. So
you're looking at it visually, they're coming in emotionally, they're thinking about it from the character standpoint, and also interesting behavior. Actors have to create behavior, and the behavior then becomes interesting, and then the director can catch the behavior, and it changes everything. Because opening a box, as this writers in the room go, he opens the door. It's not just he opens the door. How does he open the door? He sits down. How does he sit down? I can either take that or throw it away based on if it's useful or not. Maybe that stage direction may not be useful. I don't want to sit down. Maybe my energy is something completely different, so I'm going to do this.
Do you read the stage directions with any great care?
No. Oh, that's a good point. With any great care. With any great care, that's a good point. I do not read them the first go round. I usually wait until I've gotten to the set because for me, that's the last thing. I can easily decide on the day, all right, you want to fix da-da-da. You want me to sit here. You want me to stand there. Because for me, it's about the behavior. And for me, there's no, I get into the space. And if I know the space, which most time in television, you've been in that space, I've already sort of blocked it in my head a little bit as to where I want. Right. Now, then we get on set, and then the script supervisor, always is like, well, it says here that you do this. Well, what I'm trying to do is come up with something, A, more interesting, and B, something that's not redundant, because I've been in this space a lot and I know my character, and I'm like, I already thought about it. I'm like, man, first season I sat over here, I did this thing. I'm not doing that again. I'm going to do this. Right. I'm always thinking about the entire time. What have I done before? All that stuff. It is. I would always say to directors, I always tell directors, with great actors, good actors, don't just give them rehearsal and don't say anything to them about what the scene's about, because even telling what the scene's about is insulting to them. They think they know the scene better than you do, and they should, hopefully in their head, in terms of how the character performs it. But then after you've seen it, then go in, go in and then tweak. They're gonna appreciate the notes. Great actors like notes after. Because maybe there's something they didn't think of, something you saw. Now they value your opinion because you've seen what they've done, and now you're going to take a little chisel or a little scalpel and make an adjustment to it. But if you try to tell them what to do before they do it, they can't. No, actors, they can't take it. They can't take it because they're like, even if you're right, you're like, okay. The thing is like, it's like me saying, hey man, and I do some time. I'll say, hey, what lens you guys on? Not that I want to ask you to change or anything. Oh, you guys want a 40 or 50? Right. 50, okay. I'm just checking because I want to know. I'm trying to learn the lenses and learn what kind of shots they're setting up. Oh, this is the medium. This is you're shooting your master. You shouldn't. I'm just trying to, and then you tell the story both sides. I'm just asking for technical purposes, not that I'm trying to ask the person to switch the lens. I want to know how tight you are, all that kind of stuff. But if I were to tell the director, hey man, can we start? You want to start? Let's start with the master. And then you want to push it in. Or better yet, I think this scene is emotional. Let's go in first. Let's shoot our coverage and then back out. Like that's something as an actor.
I respect that. You tell me that, I'll do it.
But that's a bad example, because what I told you just now was actually a purposeful thing and had a reason for it. So that's actually a reasonable request. But if you know what I'm saying, if you tell a director what shots he should start with, or what, it's crazy, because he's like, it may be a no-brainer. He's going to start with the master first. But why am I telling you that? I don't have to tell you that.
That's the thing that no one teaches you, which is how. And I would say that having kids is very helpful in this, because you know that you don't get what you are looking for from your kid by fiat. You know what I'm saying? Like, and also you kind of like, there'll be times where it's like, all right, this emotional outburst will probably be over in about 25 seconds. And then she's going to act like it never happened, and she's going to do what we were going to do. So like, you kind of learn, like, you got to find ways to unlock what you want and prompt
Yeah.
in a way.
Make them think it's their idea, like if I could just find a way to lead them to this thing. Is there,
and it goes for all.
Is there any value? Something I like to use is like, is there any value in blah, blah, blah? Trying to this way? Is there any value to opening the door? Is there any value to playing this on his feet because da, da, da? Because it's like, is this one more, is I'm just bringing up an option here. Is this something that is of value? And it's like, hey, okay, that doesn't work. But you got to find a way into like leading them to some place. You know what I mean?
The only time that it's funny is, not the only time, but it is funny though, when you're like, is there any value? And they're like, I don't know. Well, have you considered? Well, I'm going to stand. I'm gonna stand. Like when you see like they're not finding the value or anything in what you're talking about, you're like, well, okay, it ain't work for you. I'm not sitting down.
Look, I was gonna say, the worst case scenario, when it's all said and done, if you really, really can't you go, all right, listen, if you do it this way, it's gonna add us another setup. Or that's gonna add blah, blah, blah. Like if you tell them it's gonna take more time, sometimes they're like, okay, no, I'll do it this way then for you. Because it's like, sometimes they're just being, it's not about the performance, it's just about, I'm just decided I want to do it this way. It's like, well, okay, you can do it that way, but we're gonna have to probably add another setup. Blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be a little later, you know how it is. Sometimes it's just, hey, it's not practical.
Yeah. Hey, here's a question, because you are the first interview of season 6. And I was trying to think of a question that would put a spotlight on the different people that are involved in this collaborative effort of making TV and film. Mm-hmm. What position do you think is the most underappreciated on a film or TV set, and why?
Oh, I would say almost without hesitation, without a doubt, script supervisor.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, script supervisor, if you think about it, continuity, which, I mean, obviously some people care. Some directors don't care about continuity. They don't care, right? They're just like, whatever. They're like, if they're looking at that, then blah, blah, blah. But it keeps you honest. It keeps you, what side of the line you're on. Especially in television, a great script supervisor can really, like Mel, you make yourself invaluable because you're sort of keeping an eye on everything, and you're sort of allowing a guest director to come in and just play. And then when he gets out of, pull him back over here, just like guy and back. Right. Oh yeah. I've seen many directors, they're just rambling or saying something and da da da. Even in films, it's like, oh yeah, but okay, gotcha, yeah, because they got a copious amount of notes, copious amounts of things. And their responsibility, I think, goes unnoticed in terms of what they're doing over there. They're hovering, they're quiet, but they're constantly, and they speak only when they need to say something that's important, because it's like, okay, guys, I know you're going to do this, but this is what we need to do, and it's usually invaluable information that's going to save us time and money. Because if she's quiet, we're going to do something we can't even use,
Especially in a world where you have to move so fast.
Yes.
I this is kind of people listening, they're going to be like, you say this all the time now, but like, in the last year or two, I don't look at the scripts anymore. Obviously I prep from them, but once we shoot, I don't look at it. Yeah. Because I feel like the moment, I'm almost trying to look at the monitors like this. Yeah. Because the moment I feel a detraction away from what I'm watching or something, I'm like that's what I'm there for. Mm-hmm. And I'm not looking at your fucking hands. You know what I mean? I can't do all those things at the same time. And that's where that script supervisor comes in and is like, oh,
because you want to edit, you got to be able to use it.
She flipped her hair over the right ear that time.
Can't be in the scene like this the whole time when you shot the last take like this. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody's got to call it. Somebody's got to be able to go talk to the, and actors, we will listen, because it doesn't make any sense to do that to yourself, And you do that early on in the masters, and you tell, this is what you did. You might want to make a choice. And just so you know, director like last take, which you had your arms this way. Just saying, it's up to you if you want to change that, but that's the take he liked. So then the actor has now an idea that, do I want to continue that, or do I want to try this? We need that, because what you don't want to do is waste take after take after take, and then you realize, you're not, you know what I mean? It's just, it's helpful. Sure. It's helpful.
So what's your take on the industry, man? As we round third base here, how are we feeling about things as the world opens back up and everybody's trying to figure out what to do post-strike?
Man, I think a lot of it comes down to, I mean, it's a lot of BS going on in terms of like what people say and you know, the terminology executives are using with artists and producers and well, independent producers, not executive producers, but people who, hey, this is what we're financing now. This is what things look like. This is why we're doing it this way. This is why we're shooting here, not there. I think there's a lot of, at the end of the day, it's never really that complicated. You know, you have shareholders and we're in a studio system that shares profit, right? I think as a person who was in Netflix for a while, you know, you think about what Netflix did to the industry. I thought that it was fine, but everybody couldn't do the same thing they were doing. Everybody else was trying to do the same thing they were doing. And so the scales tipped. You know, Netflix came up with something that was interesting and then they were capitalizing on it. But it was everybody else trying to jump on the same bandwagon was short-sighted. You know, when you know, we did Cage and stuff like that and all those other shows that came out, it was like us, Orange is the New Black, you know, House of Cards, all these shows, handful of shows. And then it started increasing in content exponentially. It became a content race. Well, the race for content doesn't mean it was quality, but it definitely
content is not art. Content is a volume idea.
It's something. It's like filler. It's like filler. It's like filler for food. It's like you can eat. Well, content is kind of like potatoes. There's no complex carbohydrates. It's like pasta. It's just like empty carbs. So just content for content's sake, everybody was like, oh, we have to amp up our content. Well, at the end of the day, the boom in stock that all these streamers saw, or at least the first one saw, everybody wanted, it wasn't attainable. But not only that, we still doing the same thing we were doing before. When everybody started binging, I remember thinking to myself, they're binging our show in one weekend? I was offended because I went, you spent 6 months to do something and people sat in 13-hour span just watching it. How could you pay attention that long?
Yeah,
how could you
sleep for 30% of it?
Come on, man. Even if your eyes open, can you focus on something episode after episode after episode? It doesn't make any sense. So personally, I was offended because I was like, I don't like the way they consume the art. I don't like the way they consume it. So then that happened for a while, and now here we are. Fast forward to like almost a decade later, we're back to where we're going to be anyway. Ad based, right? People are going to release one episode at a time, because if you release one episode at a time, they want to be on the train. You got to stay on the train. You can't just binge it and drop off. All this stuff that they were doing is now going back full circle to where it was. And I also feel like they're lying about the profits, because profit-wise, as long as you want to keep your stocks high, you got a profit share to create art, though. The problem is they want to just keep it all and then just shave off a little bit. It's almost like, yeah, we made a lot of money, but we're going to reinvest this much to make the content. And we're going to keep all, then we're going to make more. And also we want to have less to invest to make the same amount of money. We get the profits. Profits go to our shareholders, not the artists. And that's how it works. So as long as they're, you know, that's all it is. You know, that's all the whole contract dispute is about. Paying artists less to create stuff that makes them a lot of money. And then they get mad when we want more of it. So it's like, no, we want to give you less of it. So let's find some other way to replace you. It's just that simple. The money's the money, but they want to keep more money than they want to share. And here we are. And I think it's, you know, it's unfortunate, but yeah, it's going to be something. I think we're going to be in a position where everybody who is an artist is going to have to start to just think about what they want to make, and forget about this idea of Hollywood and the glamour of, because it's going to be a huge distance between the have and the have-nots. And it's getting worse and worse.
Yeah, that contraction is happening, man. And like I see, you know, I mean, look, I'm fortunate because I do comedy and drama, so I have double the pool to have access to. But like, yeah, man, it's like there are fewer shows that used to like get, you know, shows that I hate some of the terminology, which is why I'm kind of stuttering. Yeah. You know, like shows that network shows are now getting premium cable directors. You know what I mean? Like they have more of that pick because there's fewer jobs. So they're like, well, we want somebody who's done this kind of thing versus like, you know, somebody who's done 8 to 10 of our episodes before. So it's a wild, wild west. And, you know, I listened to an interview yesterday with John Landgraf from FX. And he said, like, before Silicon Valley came into it and all the streaming stuff, like, you know, the at that time, whatever, 6 to 8 movie studios had no interest in seeing the others fail. It was not part of their fucking thinking.
Wow.
It was like, obviously, like we all trying to win with the best movies, but we're not trying to make Paramount go away.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, man, that's
where they are now.
That's where it is, right? And so like now you have these like legacy places that are like still trying to compete with Netflix, and they can't. And Netflix is, able to play a game that others can't. Apple can play that game, but even they're finding, do we want to spend the money? Amazon can play the game. So I don't know, man. I don't know where it's going, but gonna keep making stuff. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I know. You were making stuff before the big boom. Like I told you before we started recording, it's like you were making stuff off of your own blood, sweat, and tears, before anybody noticed.
Made one of them thanks to you when it was raining in your apartment. I know you were like, well, you go get the fuck out of here so I can deal with this leaking roof.
Listen, man, I remember that. Every time I say to myself, people go, ever since then, people were like, there's been times where even in LA, somebody would leave and they want to use the house. I'm like, no. There are shows that I watch. They'd be like, shoot in the neighborhood and leave a little note on the thing. They're like, no. Because I already know. Listen, it's a whole thing. You need to go away. Like you got to, if you ever give your house to a movie or TV show, we just did it in Toronto. And the guy was a fan of us, people who were shooting. We took the house over for 5 days. Great house.
Right.
They went away on vacation and they came back and stayed. But it was a perfect scenario. But let me tell you, man, most times it is not what people think it is. It is like, you got to go away because what they're going to do to your house and how long they're going to be in there.
Oh yeah. You ain't going to like it. You ain't going to like it. And as somebody who, my work is predicated on renting locations, I've had the same thing. They put the notice up, Silicon Valley shot on our street. I was like, y'all can't even use the driveway.
Not the driveway. I know. They ask you about driveway. Crafty. No driveway, nothing. That's crazy. We're in the business and we say no. That's exactly right, dude. Can't use a driveway. They wanted to I wasn't even home one time and they wanted to use my driveway and I still said no.
Yeah, man. Nah, look, I know I'm being smart, but when you see me asking, remember, we'll be nice to your place.
We'll be nice to your place. I know exactly right. Don't forget what we said. Yeah,
forget that. So, all right, last question I like to ask everybody, man. What 3 traits do you think are required to make it in this industry?
You got to have, well, obviously the ones that everybody, you got to have that tenacity, right? The tenacity to continue to just, the dogged, energy to just kind of grind it through no matter what, right? So determination, right? Tenacity, determination. That's one. Then you got to have some talent. And I think hopefully, there are people who have less talent or more talent because, right? So you can put in that I'll work you stuff, tenacity in the first category. I'll work other person, tenacity and all that stuff. Then you got to have some talent. And the talent is not, your whole success in your career is not going to be predicated on how much talent you have, but you should have some. And let me take that back. I'm assuming you have talent. I'm assuming you have talent, right? You got to have, because otherwise you wouldn't be in. I would hope, I would hope. I hate to I don't put that as one of the components because that would mean that there are people who don't have any talent, and I don't want to say that because there are people who I don't necessarily like their work or whatever, but I don't want to say they have no talent. So let me just leave the talent out because I'm assuming you have talent. So if you have the other thing I talked about, doggedness, determination, and tenacity, that one thing, then you probably have to have, I would say, a real good sense of what your true north. Like know who you are and know what you want to do and how you want to do it and what some deal breakers are. Like you got to be able to be true to yourself. And true to yourself is for somebody else that's different to everybody's got their own idea about what that is. And the reason I say that because if you don't figure that out, when you look back or at some point during the process and you realize you portrayed whatever you thought you were, who you thought you were, it's gonna be hard to recover from that because then you don't know yourself. When you look in the mirror, you got to be able to respect yourself. You got to be able to say, I didn't do something that I didn't want to do or that I didn't agree with. Know what you're getting yourself into because those things will haunt you for the rest of your life. No matter what success comes out of that, no matter how you spin it, like all this open up doors. Once you cross that line with yourself, you never really are able to go back because you got to look yourself in the mirror, man. You got to sleep at night. You got to know what you were doing and how you did it and how you move, right? So you figure that out because that's going to be important in your whole career. And then the other thing is if you want to really stay long term, you gotta watch how you treat people. You gotta watch it, because everybody's you're not gonna be on top forever. You're not gonna be, the minute they can find a moment to screw you over because they don't have to accommodate you anymore, because you're not the person that they need to, you're not that dude anymore.
They just waiting. They just waiting to put their foot on their neck.
They can't wait to put their foot on your neck, and they're gonna pile on. I don't care if it's every little thing you can think of that can come your way. It will, and they'll be in a line to give it to you. So just be humble. Be humble. Have some humility. Have that ego that if you need to pull it out, somebody, all right, man, look, man, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to create boundaries for yourself. But remember, at the end of the day, if you treat people wrong, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your driver. I don't care if it's a crafty person. I don't care if it's your costumer. I don't care if it's your script supervisor who's trying to help you out and make sure the show or the film is going the right direction. I don't care if it's a director, because directors also, I watch directors, man. Sometimes directors go through the ringer with actors, because they, especially on TV, they know that a director's coming through. A director doesn't really, you're not running anything because you coming in. I'm going to make you, all that stuff. It's just all that stuff, right? It doesn't have to be that way. Like, it's just weird, like that weird energy. I'm like, I hate that. It's like, why would you want to create a situation where they don't feel like, that value? You know what I mean? So even then, because those directors will go on and do other things. I've seen directors, everybody, producers, directors, you never know. They're going to be a showrunner, a writer, creator. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's going to come back.
So I peeped the alliteration. I don't know if you did it on purpose, but you said tenacity, you said talent, then you withdrew it, but two T's. Then you said true north. So true another north. T there. Yeah. Then you said how you treat people. Yeah. And I would add, in recognition of what you've been doing, I would add taste. Taste. I think taste has been an important part of your career in not getting locked into a box and kind of having your eye on doing things that showcased all of your ability, but good shit. Because some people don't know good shit. And at the same time, also, sometimes you see something that maybe isn't at the level that it could be, but you see that it's there and it can be elevated. So I tip my hat to you, man. It's been a dope to just watch the journey, from up close to the sideline, from afar, man. And
you too, man. You too. Before you got your stride, now you're unbookable, because you booked for the next 5 years. But I was telling people in television, and every time I got a show, man, you got to get this guy Pete. Pete's doing his thing. Pete. Just like certain people, I'm like, we got it, because they're always talking about the diversity and all that stuff. I'm like, we couldn't. It's like, man, can we get Pete? Because it's just like every once in a while, I knew you were putting in the time, and I knew you were already. Because I like TV directors who work in television, who've also done film, who understand. They just understand the pace, and understand if you're doing both, you understand the pace, you understand how to deal with people, and you also have a little bit of a better taste, because you're not a part of, that's not all you've ever done. So you're not just like, this is what I do. I come in, I got to get my coverage and this and that. You're coming in trying to find a way to make it a Pete Chatmon, deal. Like, hey, that's my thing. This is what I do,
Yeah, nah, man, I appreciate you, man. And
man,
we got, 2025, maybe we work together on something,
2025.
Man. You know what I'm saying? Man. Well, it's a pleasure, man. Mike Colter, appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
What's up, people? This is Pete Chatmon. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter via @PeteChatmon. Follow the pod on IG via @Let'sShootWithPeteChatmon, and hit up our mailbag with questions, suggestions, or donations if you're feeling like it, via let'sshootwithpetechatmon@gmail.com. And just in case you need to know how to spell it, that's Pete with the last name Chatmon. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is produced and edited by the multi-talented cut creator Tristan Nash, assistant produced by the young mogul Jada George, and features the wonderfully gifted Kelly McCreary as our announcer. It's written by yours truly, but I mostly come up with these questions on the fly, which you've probably noticed. Go ahead and get your podcast swag via PeteChatmon.com and leave a review on iTunes if so inclined. That shit matters. Let's Shoot with Pete Chatmon is sponsored by Scriptation. Scriptation makes it easy to go paperless on set Increase your productivity and save hours of time. Let's Shoot listeners get a special discount on Scriptation Industry Pro. Go to scriptation.com/Pete to learn more. Thanks for listening, y'all. Tune in next week for our interview with Maggie Kiley, director of American Sports Story, Dr. Death, and the pilot for the upcoming NBC show Grosse Pointe Garden Society that I have the pleasure of starting prep on next week. In the meantime, stay safe, spread love, and keep creating.